this button. Okay, so first off, an announcement thing, or a couple announcement things. So summer camp, we had our July summer camps every week through July. It was pretty cool. One of the things I've always thought would be neat would be to get to do like an extended like school type thing where we just have you guys every day for a while. Huh?
So you gotta be on footwork.
Yes. So Puck and Quicksilver did all 4 weeks, so that was pretty cool. Beefy did 3. I think Bullseye did 3. Lantern did 3. Couple other guys. Lazarus did 2. Time Bomb did 3. Strider did 3. And there may have been some other guys that did 3, but off the top of my head, that's what I can think of. I think it was a lot of fun. I think people had fun. We are doing more camps in August. So the August camps will be similar to the July camps, but we will also have Maria Luisa like teleconferencing in to run some stuff during parts of August camp. Right now, no one is signed up for week 3. I'm thinking that maybe when school stuff is getting restarted or when people are expecting to be getting ready for school stuff. So we might end up just canceling week 3 altogether since it has no signups. We're trying to keep numbers fairly low, but we also want to make sure that we have enough people that you guys enjoy the camp fully and that we've got enough people that it makes sense to reasonably run the camp. Week 1 for August only has 2 people signed up right now. It would be really nice to get a couple more people signed up. Then week 2 has 4 people, which is enough where we can kind of do stuff and make things work. It would still be nice to have a couple more people sign up. I think Lantern said he's going to be signing up for that week, so that should put us at 5. If we can get to like 6 to 8, that's pretty nice. But we can make it work with 5 or 6. So, but if people are on the fence about signing up or thinking about signing up, we'd love to have a couple more people, especially for week 1 for August. And we'll make sure that we do some cool stuff. And again, we'll get Maria Luisa in there to give you guys some exercise ideas and some drill ideas. So that'll be a really valuable thing. You won't want to miss out on that. All right, other announcement. We are going to temporarily extend the time frame for Knighthood. There were 4 boys who were seniors this year. One decided that he was not super interested in continuing defense. And then another one decided that with quarantine, he was expecting that once things ended, he'd be getting ready to go off to school. So he decided not to continue. 2 others stuck it out, Beefy and Atlas. Beefy came into camp to try to work on some of his last couple Knighthood things. We're hoping to work on a few more of them before he has to leave for school. And Atlas, we unfortunately didn't have Atlas at camp, and Atlas, I think, is potentially leaving this week for college. But because these guys missed like 3 months of the opportunity to train or do anything, it seems reasonable to give them a little more time, especially because the school semesters are probably going to be weird, and they'll probably be back for partial semesters. Like Beefy already knows he's going to be back. Atlas is unsure what's going to be happening for him. And we've done... Most schools are, so yeah, it would make sense. They haven't announced it at his school yet, as far as he knows, but they'll probably do that. We've done that once before. When Coach passed away, we extended the deadline for any of the kids who were in that situation. So I've decided that for the kids who are seniors this year, as in seniors in this past season that finished, the ones that are heading off to college at the end of this month, we will extend until December 31st. So they'll have until then to finish their last couple Knighthood requirements. So hopefully when Atlas is back, he'll be able to take care of some of those, and Beefy will be taking care of some of them till he leaves, and then once he's back after Thanksgiving. For a recap for any of the newer fencers or newer families, most people know for TriWeapon we have a system of requirements and ranks. So whereas in a lot of clubs you're going to go in and your coach will sort of work with you on whatever they decide to work with you on, or there might be a curriculum that they're working on. There's not necessarily a good way for you to track your progress or for your parents to track your progress, and there's not necessarily a component that ties to any sorts of rights or responsibilities or structure as far as what you're moving through, so that you can kind of map what you're doing fencing-wise to what your position in the club is. When Coach Oles put together TriWeapon, he modeled it off of Boy Scouts, where you have certain requirements in order to achieve rank advancements. And so we have beginners who are in their beginner class or completed their beginner class, pages who learn the basic footwork things, squires who have learned your basic fencing fundamentals and components, knight errants who have completed those fundamentals and components that a squire learned and have learned some more significant elements of fencing, and then knights who've learned a lot more details and particular actions and ideas and concepts. And so as you're going through, there's a lot of different things you're getting checked on. You pretty much know the bulk of fencing on some level by the time you're finished. Some of the unique elements to the way we do it, you also have to have some sort of certification. So that's what makes us a guild academy. There's not a lot of guild academies left in the United States. But with a guild academy, that means that we're a place where you can learn all the different elements of fencing. So the sport itself, refereeing, tournament management or event management, coaching, and armory. And so one of the requirements to be a knight is that you have to be certified in one of those areas. So all of you pick a single area, and you're in the club's guild for that area, and you work on developing there. And then we recommend that everyone have a second area that they're working on too, because armoring and bout committee are a little bit difficult to get certified in because there's not super clear processes, or there's not processes that they use regularly for that. Refereeing and coaching are pretty straightforward. So congratulations to Beefy and Time Bomb. Both of them passed the preliminary coaching examination during summer camp. So I've just got to sit down with them over the next week or so and finish their paperwork for that and get that sent in to the Coaches Association. And then they will receive their assistant monitor status, which makes them certified as assistant coaches through the U.S. Coaches Association. So that's pretty cool. Pretty impressive that they got that done. Rocky's working on that too. And then hopefully we'll have some people working on the actual monitor, like the full coaching certification, as far as some of our assistant coaches and regular coaches who are trying to develop. And there's a few people outside of our club in the area who are looking to come here to work with us on that too. So we'll be offering some stuff on that soon. So some of your requirements for knighthood, in addition to that certification, that have been asked about, and some of you have seen them on the chart, I figured now is a good time to go over that while we're talking about them. One of the ones that came up yesterday with Atlas is the character review. Some of you were here a few years ago. We had a boy where there was some reasons why it made sense to try to get him through and get him knighted, but normally we're not going to try to push somebody through and make it happen. They need to really do the work and they need to deserve it. There are some special circumstances there. But some of his behavior and some of his attitude about things were not really the way we wanted them to be. And under normal circumstances, we probably would have said, well, no, we're not going to knight you. So when we redid the chart and redid the requirements, I wanted that to be an explicit element that everyone knew was there, that you have to behave well. Like, you can't just say, oh, I learned all these fencing things, so I get to be a knight. You have to deserve to be a knight. You have to have the character to be a knight. There's a reason why it's a knight. It's not just that we use swords, but there's a whole element of the behavior associated with young men who become knights, and we want you guys to have behavior that's accorded to that. So one of the things that we'll do towards the end of your requirements is you and I will sit down, we'll talk about your time in TriWeapon, we'll talk about how you behaved, how you've conducted yourself, and I'll make a determination as to whether or not it seems like you exhibit the type of character that we want to see. Most of you guys are really great guys. Most of you behave very well. Most of you model the behaviors we want to see. You're good members of our community here, and I assume you're good members of your community beyond fencing too. So I don't foresee problems with that with much of any of our fencers. We tend to have a really good group. We want you guys to develop into leaders. We want you to develop into people who support and help other people. We want you to develop into the people that you would think of as knights. So just keep that in mind, because that's something that I'm always watching and will keep in my head as we are moving you towards knighthood. Beefy and Atlas both passed their character reviews, so they are both fine there. But one of the big elements to that is, are you contributing to the development of your teammates? Some of you have known some of the UMBC fencers. Some of you were around a couple years ago where we had one of the squad captains at UMBC who really was not a very good squad captain. He didn't work with his squad. He didn't work to develop them. He would show up and try to fence Coach Eric, and that was about it. And he didn't have much interest in anything else. In fact, people on his squad thought two of the other members of the squad were the squad captains. They didn't even realize he was the squad captain. We have squad captains here in TriWeapon too. You don't want to be in that situation where the squad's like, wait, isn't so-and-so the captain? I didn't know this guy was our captain. You don't want anyone thinking that you're not doing your functions there if you're in that role. But even if you're not a squad captain, if you are the head boy or the assistant head boy, if you're the secretary, if you're the head of one of the guilds, then you need to be doing the stuff that's associated with that job and helping the development of the people in your group. Or if you're just one of the senior fencers who's more experienced, who's been out to tournaments, who's moved on and has become a knight errant and is preparing to be a knight, then there's an element of that where part of the responsibility of those positions is that you'll be there to help impart your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, because by that point you have those things. And that's something that we don't necessarily tell young men, that they have knowledge or wisdom or experience to impart. There's the expectation that they have to have that imparted to them by other people. But you guys have that too, and that's valuable, and it's something that your teammates look to. Your younger teammates definitely look up to you. Bandit. Do you look up to Beefy? Yeah. So, well, yeah, but it's Bandit, so he's pretty tall, so maybe not that much taller. So, but that's also a cool thing. Like, if you guys don't realize that your younger teammates look up to you, your younger teammates admire you, they talk about you a lot when you're not here, they think you guys are really cool. That's something that also has value. In addition to the knowledge that you can impart to them, the experience of being someone that other people look up to and that other people admire, that's a cool thing for you to get to experience. You don't want to miss out on that. So that's been a thing that we've run into for a while, where sometimes the older boys, they're kind of like, oh, well, the TriWeapon practices, they're really for the younger boys, so I don't really need to go to that. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as a responsibility. You had the older boys there working with you when you were developing. It's your turn to be the older boy working with the younger boys. You'll also notice a lot of times, while we'll kind of do your fundamental stuff, which the older guys still need to work on in the practice, quite frequently I will pick something that the older guys need to work on to get checked off on, and we'll devote blade work sessions towards that. So a lot of times the practice is tailored to the older guys. It's easy to miss that that's happening, but that's the case a lot of the time. So don't think that you should skip that. You should definitely be there, because we're going to work on things for you a lot of the time, because that also helps the younger guys. They get exposed to stuff that's a little bit ahead of where they are, so they get more ideas that they're able to use when they go out to tournaments, and then it's easier for them when they get to the point of working on that because they've seen it before. But we definitely want to make sure you guys are getting what you need too, because you're getting closer to the end of the program, and we want to make sure that you're ready. So we are going to make sure that the practices are set for you guys too. In addition to that, another requirement that comes up that people ask about is the area of excellence and the tactical analysis. This was something that we added. Area of excellence was an idea that was invented by an Olympic medalist in épée. The concept is that most of the time in fencing, you're going to make really basic actions. You're going to make attacks, you're going to make counterattacks, attacks and prep, you might make some parry ripostes. But pretty much your attacks are going to dominate. Counterattacks and attacks in prep are essentially variations off that concept of attacking, and then parry riposte are sort of the next thing that will be your bread and butter. But there's times where you need something else. There's times where the score is tied up and it's close to the end and you definitely need to get a point or two to get ahead. There's times where it might be early in the bout and you're down by a touch or two and you need to get back to being tied up or back to having the lead in order to try to maintain the lead and keep that momentum towards winning. So you need to have some sort of touch that you can fall back on, or some sort of action that you can fall back on where you know you can score. That's what your area of excellence is. It's the action that you use in those critical moments where you have to score a touch. It's something where you know if you have the opportunity to execute it, you're going to be able to execute it essentially perfectly, and you can force a situation to allow yourself to score. Generally, you don't want to have a bunch of those. If you have too much variety, it's too much choice. It's too much for you to think about when you're in that situation and you're under that pressure. So you've got two. We want to have two things that fall under your area of excellence. And they can be things that are pretty simple. In epee, for a lot of guys, it's going to be a circle 6 flesh. Or maybe some action where you take the blade and there's some sort of flick off of that action. There's lots of things you can choose from. But a lot of times they're not going to be weird, complicated actions. They're going to be actions that are kind of common, but they're actions where you can take the initiative and take over and make the choice to score. The way we figure out what your area of excellence actions are is we watch your fencing. And we look at situations where you're fencing people that are comparable to you, people that maybe are a little better than you, and we look at what you rely on and what you do well and what your sort of fallbacks are. And from there, we decide, okay, these are two actions that you naturally sort of fall back on. You're naturally pretty good at them. You can make them work a lot of the time. So now we're going to figure out how to make them work all of the time. We're going to see how to make them the things that you can rely on in a pinch when you really need something special. That ties into the tactical analysis requirement. Tactical analysis is something where those of you who've been around for a few years probably remember when we had it on the board, because we had it up on the board for like a year, where we broke down, had that grid where we broke down all of your main sort of fencing actions. And we looked at, this is what the action is. This is like the actual definition, description of the action. These are the things that have to be done in order to do the action. These are the things your opponent has to be doing in order to allow you to do the action. And these are things that make the action a little bit easier, or things that you can use in order to make it more likely that you're going to score. We go through, we look at the tactical analysis on a handful of different actions, but we focus on your area of excellence actions. And then from there, you can say, all right, if I'm going to make a circle 6 and flesh into my opponent for my area of excellence, my opponent can't have their blade in absence. The blade's got to be extended out somewhat for me to take it. If they have their blade in a really low line, it's not going to work for me to take it in 6. It's possible, but it's going to be much easier if I can get their blade into a high line. And it's going to be much easier if I can get their blade to be partially extended instead of just in line. Because there's a difference there. If the blade's partially out, you can get the blade a lot more easily than if it's just in line but still withdrawn. So those are things where you're looking at what the features are that you have to make happen and what the features are that help you make it happen. You might look at what kind of distance is necessary for that action. You might look at where your blade needs to be also. And so then once you have that analysis set, you can start looking at, okay, what kind of invitation can I use in order to get their blade to be where I want it to be? What kind of feint can I use in order to get them to slow to the tempo that I want them to be at, or to put their blade extended the way that I want it to be extended? Or if it's an action where you want their blade moved out of the way, how can I manipulate their blade to get it into the place that I want it to be? Going through that tactical analysis lets you figure out how to apply your tactics in order to push your opponent into a position where you can make the action that you know you can score with. This isn't something you're going to do a lot in a pull bout. In a pull bout, you're going to walk out and try to hit the person 5 times in as simple a way as possible. But in a DE bout, where you've got 15 touches to go, potentially 29 actions could score, then you have some time to build up ideas, to build up a tactical scenario, and to make those sorts of things work. So that's something where you start to move from a guy who knows some fencing actions and can be a little bit athletic and get out on the strip and do some things, to a guy who can actually fence and can manipulate your opponent, can set up ideas and make choices about what's happening on the strip. And that's part of the goal for once you hit that level of knighthood, that you're someone who can fence like that. So those are some of the requirements that people look at the chart and they're like, I don't understand what this is. I don't know what that is. Those are also requirements that you can kind of look forward to because, all right, bandit or ghost or banshee. If you think about like your teammates who fence really well or opponents you've seen at places, if you could go into a situation and say, all right, I have a really great attack. I have the timing to figure out making an attack in preparation. I can hit a counterattack really well. My parry repost is clean. But sometimes that's not enough. But I know I've got these two actions that are great, and I know how to make my opponent give me the opportunity to do them. Would that make a difference in your fencing? Yeah, it would make things a lot better for you, right? Like Bandit, you go out, you pick up some medals pretty routinely. But if you could fence like that, you'd be picking up some higher level medals a lot more routinely, right? And you probably feel more confident, which is a big thing. So that's something that even before you get to that knighthood area, we want you to be thinking about stuff like that. And epeists, you guys have to be thinking about that from day one. Like Zoro and Time Bomb, when you guys were like 8 and 6 or whatever ages you were when you started, you guys were already learning some strategies that you could use. So not necessarily tactical ideas, but things where, hey, if I do this, my opponent's probably going to do that, and so I can do this action. And you started doing that from day one in epee. And so this is sort of expanding that idea. Saber, you guys get some of that too. Foilists get a little bit of it also. But epee is like a place where that really shines and is really a thing from the beginning. Other requirement thing, not for our knights, but for the guys moving from page to squire. A couple parents and fencers were asking the other day about the appearance code. And so obviously a couple times a year we go through the appearance code so everybody knows it. Instead of, we don't have it up on the board anymore. And instead of having you guys go through and shout out pieces of it, I'm just going to run through it real quick. So when you come to practice, don't wear jeans. You go to tournament, don't wear jeans. You can wear track pants, sweatpants, gym shorts. You can wear slacks, but not jeans. Normally, the appearance code says you come in street clothes and you leave in street clothes. Right now, we are kind of telling people that they should come in their fencing clothes so that you don't have to spend time in the locker rooms to change, just so that way people aren't congregating in there. With the way practice is set up, that can be a little difficult because you don't want to come in your full whites and then do all your warm-ups and runs and everything. So we are also giving the option that you can use the changing rooms, the locker rooms, the bathrooms, and we're just recommending people do it one at a time. Alright, see you, bitch. So there is the opportunity for you to still do that safely. When you go to a tournament, same idea. You want to look presentable. You want to look respectable. You don't want to show up in your whites. You guys have seen guys do that at tournaments before. Usually they look like they're kind of stumbling in and like they don't know what's going on. Show up in your regular clothes. Use a locker room or a changing room or the bathroom. Get into your whites when you're there. Look like you're presentable and like you know what you're doing. Facial hair. So if you can grow a full clean beard, you can wear a beard to practice. None of you can do that. So you should be shaven. Yeah, it's still not enough that it gives you the pass. The exception to that is if you have a religious requirement that requires you not to shave, then you can still have your facial hair. Tournaments, even if you can keep your scruff minded so that like it's a full, clean, neat beard and not like some scruffy guy out on the sidewalk type of look. Don't do it. Go in, look presentable, look like a gentleman, keep your face clean. I say that with a beard myself, but I'm also a Sal fencer and have a full beard, so it's different. In the winter, you have to have a change of shoes. So you have to have shoes that you're fencing in versus the shoes that you're walking in and out in. Throughout the year, you have to have a change of shirt. You guys, particularly once you hit about 12 or 13, will be pretty smelly by the end of practice. There's no reason your parents need to smell you in the car. So bring a shirt. You can either wear the shirt that you're going to wear to fence and then change into a clean shirt when you leave, or wear a clean shirt, change into your fencing shirt, change back to your clean shirt when you leave, whichever way you want to do it, but you're supposed to have a clean shirt. For the squires and above, you have uniform shirt requirements. So you have to either be wearing your TriWeapon shirt or a shirt that has something fencing related on it. So that should make that pretty easy, that you're going to have your shirt to fence in and a clean shirt. I think that covers the appearance code stuff. Is there anything that I missed on there?
Oh, jacket in the winter.
Oh, yep. In the winter, you've got to have a jacket when you come and go. Yes, I get that you're only outside for a minute or two and you're going to be in a warm car, but you don't know if it's going to start to rain or snow while you're at practice, and you should be pretty warm by the end of practice from running around and exercising. Having that quick snap between the heat and the cold can be jarring for your muscles. It can be jarring for your system. So have a jacket when you're coming in and when you're going out. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to do anything where they're going to create undue tension in your muscles. Yes, sometimes in certain ways of administering it, moving from heat to cold can be useful as a recovery system. Going from running around really intensely while wearing a bunch of stuff and then walking into 10-degree weather is not how that works. So, all right, other updates. Tournaments and renewing your membership. We talked at camp about how we might be having an epee tournament in August because the division has said that we want to hold off on our tournament scheduling until September, but we would allow clubs to submit tournaments. U.S. Fencing has said they will sanction tournaments as long as they're within the guidelines for the municipality in which the tournament's being held. For us, gyms have to stay at 50% capacity. We're using a very conservative number of 50 for our capacity, and so our 50% mark is 25. As we all know from Wolf Moon, we actually can accommodate a lot more people than that in here. So we're keeping our capacity numbers lower than we need to in order to make sure everyone is safe and comfortable. Even with that, we could host a tournament that had about 15 to 20 fencers and still have room for referees and staff. We just wouldn't have room for spectators in that case, but we could video the tournament or maybe live stream the tournament in that case. We were looking at doing that in August with epee. Some of the clubs in the division are not keen on the idea, so it may not get approved. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know what's going to happen with tournaments in general. U.S. Fencing is looking at approving them, but apparently they did clarify recently that currently the way they're sanctioning events, you are only allowed to go to events in your division. I had heard about some divisions saying this. I know in Virginia division they're saying you can only go to practices at your home club, let alone crossing divisions. Right now we don't have restrictions like that in Maryland, and so we've had people from other clubs and other divisions going to practices at various clubs that are open in Maryland and Capital Division. But for tournaments, it sounds like U.S. Fencing may be saying that if you're in Capital Division, you can't go to Maryland Division tournament. If you're in Maryland Division, you can't go to Capital. Even though Capital Division is in the state of Maryland, and the Capital Division clubs are like 30, 40 minutes from us. So I don't know how that's going to impact holding tournaments. That might make it a little harder to have enough people to hold a reasonable tournament. But we'll see what happens on that, and we'll keep you guys up to date. U.S. Fencing is talking about scheduling regional events and national events, but they don't have a full plan yet. For the regional events, they're saying that you will only be able to fence in your region. So whereas before, where Region 6, you could fence a rock in Region 6, but if there was a rock happening in Pennsylvania, which would be part of Region 3, then you guys could go up and fence that rock, or you could go up into New York, which is still Region 3, and fence that rock. That is not going to be allowed this season. You can only fence Region 6, which means Maryland down to Florida along the East Coast, essentially. So it's a little weird. You can go to Florida for a rock, but you can't go to Pennsylvania for a rock, but that's how they're doing it. As we get more details on that, we'll let you guys know. Membership renewal, that goes into effect today, essentially. Your memberships all expired yesterday, unless you had like 3-year or the lifetime. Um, you might consider just doing a non-competitive membership. They're allowing one competition for the season with the non-competitive membership this year. But since there are no competitions and we don't know when they will have them, you might want to use the non-competitive instead of paying more for the competitive membership, and then you can always upgrade later once we know what competitions look like. That's an option. If you're figuring that competitions will start soon and you want to just be ready to go, you can do the competitive membership. This year was a year where they were going to be increasing the price of membership. I thought they were going to hold off on it entirely, which would have been reasonable since last season we lost half the season. But they are holding off on it till September 30th. Excuse me. So if you renew your membership before September 30th, you still get the old price of $75 for the competitive membership. After September 30th, I believe it will be going up. When you renew your membership, Academies of Fencing is your primary club. I think a lot of people have fixed this, but we don't have everyone who's done it yet. This is something that's coming down from National. They don't want us to have the smaller clubs as people's primary. They want the umbrella club as the primary. Part of where this is a benefit to you, if Beefy and Randy and I fence in a tournament, and Beefy has TriWeapon as his primary club, and then say for some reason mine still was showing UMBC from back years ago, and Randy showed Sal Palache. If there were enough pools that we could be split into different pools, if all of us were under Academies of Fencing, we'd all be put into different pools. Let's say it's 3 pools. We'd be in separate pools. But say there's 3 pools and I'm listed as UMBC, Beefy's listed as TriWeapon, and Randy's listed as Academies. They might put us all in the same pool because it looks like we're from different clubs. So if you guys, epeists, don't want to have to go up against Coach Mike or Coach Eric or Mr. Chris, make sure you're listed as Academies. Make sure they're listed as Academies. Then that reduces your likelihood of being in a pool with your teammates, or at least reduces the number of teammates you'll be in a pool with. Foilists, if you're trying to avoid being in a pool with Stretch or with Quicksilver, make sure everybody's listed as Academies. Next thing I want to talk about, open bouting. We are in our partial reopening, because that's kind of how we're looking at it. We're not open for the general public to come in. We're open for our members to come in and do stuff, and for guests from other clubs that we know. So people that we're familiar with and aware of, we want them to have an opportunity to fence too, so we're making some stuff available to them. But we don't want just anyone walking in off the street where we're not familiar with who they are, because we don't want to just have everything coming in and out the door. We want to have a sense that like we're dealing with people where they're probably being safe and where we're keeping good numbers. If we just had random open bouting and everyone could walk in, we could end up with 30, 40 people showing up for open bouting. We don't want that. We want to keep to our number of 25. So we're not going super wide with invitations, and we are keeping tracking through Ask Fred. So make sure you guys are signing up on Ask Fred for open bouting. Make sure you're signing up on Ask Fred for class or for camps or any other activities. That way we know how many people are going to be here, and we can make sure we're keeping it within our safe numbers. The other element with open bouting, right now a lot of clubs are not open. So we're potentially going to have people from other nearby clubs coming in for open bouting. Foilists have had the most benefit from this so far. Last night we had 2 A-rated foilists. We had another B in addition to Stretch. We've had a couple other times where we've had 2 to 3 Bs here with 1 or 2 As and sometimes a couple Cs. So foil nights are basically like Div 1 foil nights these days, which is super unusual. That's not something that you're going to see at many clubs in the area. It's been really nice. Squeak has been here a lot, for those of you guys that remember Squeak from back in the day. And he's bringing his... Huh? Yeah, pretty much. He's bringing his teammates from Homewood. So, foilists, you guys have a really great opportunity there. You don't get a lot of chance to go fence guys who are A's and B's in foil because there's not a ton of them in this area. That was something Robert and Steven always complained about. They would go out to the regional stuff and they would be doing all the same things that they would see the A's and B's do. When Robert went to Budapest and was at the club in Budapest, he was like, all the same stuff that coach is teaching is the same stuff you're teaching. We're doing all the same things. He was like, Steve and I are just a little slower. Like, our tempo is just a little off from where the top tier guys are because we're not used to fencing them. We're used to fencing guys a little weaker than us. So there's a benefit to fencing guys that are stronger than you. Not just does it teach you to be at that competitive pacing and that competitive tempo that you'll see in the major tournaments when you get to higher levels, but even if you're not at a point where you're like, all right, I'm shooting for my B, I'm shooting for my A, if you're an E that's trying to get to the D or an E or trying to get to the C, if you're fencing guys that are A's and B's and you're trying to learn to keep up with them, as you're getting closer to what they're doing and closer to able to keep up with them, you're going to be able to keep up with the D's, you're going to be able to keep up with the C's, you're going to be able to start passing those guys, and you're going to get to the point where you can earn those ratings too. So there's a lot of big benefit to fencing the guys that are higher rated. Epeists, you guys know that because you've had multiple A's and B's here all the time because we're a huge epee program. We have a ton of really great epeists. Saber guys, you've had some really experienced people to fence, but the area just does not have the Saber ratings, so you're not seeing the same thing. But you've at least had good people to push you on. Our foilists, we haven't had a lot of adult foil. It's mostly the college guys. So this is giving our foilists a big opportunity. So foilists especially should be trying to be here for open bouting. Epeists and saber fencers, there's still a lot of benefit for you guys. It's still an important part of training, still an important part of being ready and getting out there into competition when competitions start. If you're drilling all the time and taking lessons all the time, but you're never going out to a bout and using it, you're not going to be able to practically apply what you've learned in your lesson or practically apply what you've learned in your drills. You need that context of bouting to be able to use it for real. How much easier is it to take the blade, flick, and flesh past your opponent if you do it a couple times a night, a couple nights a week in a bout, than if you've just done it in lessons a couple times over the years? Yeah, because I've got two epeists that have known how to do that for like the last 3 years, and you can't use it in a tournament because you don't ever use it in bouts, and you guys have the opportunity. So it makes a difference. Get out there, bout, and use the things that you're dealing with. Fence the guys that are really good who are going to push you. Take advantage of that. I know right now we all want to be cautious, and it's important to be cautious. That's what I want for everybody. Everyone to be cautious and make smart choices. We're doing as much as we can to keep things safe here for you. And we want you guys to be comfortable when you're here. So those of you that are, take advantage of it. Be here when you can be. Fence with the guys that are good that we've got in here to fence with you. I'm going to try to rocket through the last couple things, which actually that's a good segue into the item of using stuff you're taught to do. I was watching some of our guys bout last night, and it was definitely an issue that I noticed, that I've noticed for years. Some of you may have seen me ranting in the referee pod at Charm City 2 years ago about our epeists not fencing the way that they've been taught to fence. I'm going to use Beefy as an example. When Beefy and I fence each other, there's moments where we make the exact same action. Like, because we have a similar cycle as far as like how we process the ideas, because Beefy's been fencing with me since he was 9.
So it's very funny how we both hold good and weight at the same time.
Yes. Beefy is our most successful saber fencer. Beefy is one of Maryland Division's most successful saber fencers. Beefy does the things in bouts that he's told to do in lessons and that he's told to do in class and he's told to do in drills. His fencing is entirely the structure that he's been told it should be, and he's successful with it because that structure works. In foil, not counting stretch, just looking at our foilists. I'm not going to say who, but there's one foil on red squad, one foilist on red squad, and one foilist in yellow squad where if you look at what they do, they look exactly like how I describe foil. They look like they do a lot of the same things that Robert and Steven and the other good UMBC guys have done. You guys can probably think off the top of your head who those guys are, and we don't need to say their names. When they're fencing their peers, they tend to do a lot better. And they've had faster success in tournaments. One of them, his first practice event that he went to, he won the practice event and beat out all his other teammates. The other one was the first out of the current group of foilists to go get a rating. So doing the stuff that we tell you to do, we tell you to do it because it works. Saber guys who tend to retreat and focus on counterattack and not make aggressive attacks, you guys can see it doesn't work as well as when you're doing the aggressive stuff and doing things we tell you guys to do. Epeists. There's 2 epeists who do the stuff that I tell them to do. One of them looks really sloppy, but he looks really sloppy on purpose as a way of inviting actions in. But if you fence him, all of his blade takes are on point. He's constantly using blade takes. He's constantly using explosive moments. And he wrecked everyone last night, right? The other one, who is a cleaner version of looking exactly like what I say an epeist is supposed to look like, is on the cadet national points list. We've got other epeists that are very good and that know a lot of stuff and could be equally performing with those guys. Probably know more than those guys. Definitely know more than one of them. It's just a matter of getting you guys in the headspace to do the stuff that we say to do. So I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly who the people that I'm referring to are on both sides of that. And for those epeists that are not being referred to directly there, you know what you should be modeling and what you should be emulating, right? So those of you who haven't been focused on fencing the way that you're told to do it, and for the 2 that have been here longest, yeah, we were focused definitely on slightly more French counterattacky approach when you guys were really young, and so that's built into your thinking. But you've also had like 6 or 7 years of, hey, let's be more Polish, let's take the blade, let's be aggressive. So let's start doing that, guys. Saber fencers that hang back a little more, let's start fencing a little more like Beefy. Let's start fencing a little more like what Puck is transitioning into. Let's be aggressive and go after the touch. Foil guys, let's make some good developments. Let's move well. Let's keep the blade in a good absence and understand how to strike from that absence. Other thing along with that, going with the open bouting, a parent asked me about training schedules last night. Short answer for that: if you're looking to just fence recreationally, show up and bout once a week, take your 10-minute lesson once a week, show up for your class. If you're looking to fence locally on a competitive level or regionally on a competitive level, take a lesson twice a week, do the extended lessons, be here at about 2 to 3 nights a week. If you're trying to get ready for national circuit stuff, you've got to take the impulse schedule, be here for a lesson 3 to 4 nights a week, fencing 4 to 5 nights a week. And in both the regional or the national goals, you've got to be working out when you're not fencing. So those are things to keep in mind when you're making plans. I was going to talk a little bit about circuits and qualifications too, but we've talked a whole lot, so hopefully that's enough stuff that our friends, fencers, and families at home, so we've got some nice consonants there, they have had stuff to listen to and think about, keep you guys active on fencing. I know that's a long time for those of you that are here, kind of sitting down, going through stuff, but I think we also went through a lot of stuff that's a little bit heavier than what we usually do in the team meeting, and it's stuff that we don't get to talk about in depth like that as much. So it was important for you guys to go through, and hopefully it gave you guys stuff to think about so that you'll be able to deal with that. So I'm going to get this up online on the TriWeapon FIA YouTube page, so you guys can check that out. Beefy's got some workout stuff up on the YouTube page, so yeah, so if you guys need to follow along at home with some of the workouts, some of the camp workouts are up on my blog, and Beefy's demonstrating some of it up on the YouTube page, so check that out while you're home. Yes, and we'll get some more of that up with him soon. All right.